is going to be cool.
The topics and opinions expressed on the Dudes and Beer podcast are intended for an audience of 18 and up and are solely those of the host and guest. They neither reflect the opinions or values of either the sponsors of Dudes and Beer or your mother. I mean, seriously, have you ever heard these guys? They'll talk about anything.
Whoa, hey, you think they're going to show it? They'll probably just blur it out. Whoa, check it out, Beavis.
Grab your beverages and turn up your interweb. Solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. It's Dudes and Beer.
Ziggy plays guitar, jamming good with Webb and Gilly.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another awesome-ass episode of Dudes and Friggin' Beer, coming to you live from the cave here in Austin, Texas.
What's up, boys?
I am Chris Jordan, your host. With me, as always, is the trusty Nelson Kugle and Stephen Bishop.
Yes.
On the phone with us this evening is the amazing artist, the Quality of Mercury. We're going to be actually premiering a pre-release vinyl of his upcoming vinyl release of his album that's already been released on digital copy, Transmission, which, as I said on Facebook earlier, I've had a copy of this on digital for months and months, and man, I spin it at least twice a week.
Nice.
I love it, and to actually hear it on vinyl the way it's supposed to be heard is going to be absolutely amazing.
Right.
So whenever we come back from break, we will be joined by the Quality of Mercury to talk about his amazing new album, Transmission, right after this message from our sponsor.
Hey, are you a musician? Do you play guitar, bass, or synthesizers? Are you a studio engineer looking for that different sound? Well, fret no longer. Austin Hot Mods is there for you. From Boss to Ibanez, DoD to EHX and more, Austin Hot Mods provides over 50 different modifications and customizations to some of the most popular guitar pedals on the market, from vintage to modern. So if you're looking for that boutique custom sound on a Craigslist budget, look no further. Contact Austin Hot Mods today and mention that you heard it here on the Dudes and Beer podcast for 5% off your first guitar pedal modification. Visit them online at austinhotmods.com. Texas owned and operated and home of the Mod of the Month deal. That website again is austinhotmods.com.
And we are back, everybody, and welcome to the show, Jeremiah Rouse, also known as the artist, The Quality of Mercury. How you doing this evening, Jer?
What's up?
Greetings, Earthlings.
Oh, man, we had some fun technical issues before the podcast, and there's nothing like that kind of stuff to really get my mind raring about technical things. But before we start getting into that, what are you drinking over there? I just saw you pour something really delicious looking into your Vaso over FaceTime.
Yeah, so I went out of the way. I mean, this is about space rock, so what would be more appropriate? Space rock beer. So
Beautiful.
Right now I am drinking a Rogue Donut Mango Astronaut Ale.
Beautiful.
That sounds amazing.
Beautiful. We've got a couple of the.
It's delicious, actually.
We've got a couple of. Whenever you're in Austin next, you actually need to check out some Hops and Grain. They're one of our favorite brews here in town. We've always got some Zoe in the fridge over here. Some Zoe and some Mosaic. We've got that, and we've got a little bit of Session. That's kind of become the standard studio beer.
Right.
So we've got a little bit of that to enjoy with us tonight. Now, before we get to spinning, tell us a little bit about the birth of the Quality of Mercury, the origin of the name, and the project.
Well, all right. Well, this project started quite a long time ago. Honestly, right back when I started recording, which was probably about 1997. You know, I have a lot of influences, like musical influences, but at that time, the band Hum was out, and I was really hooked on a record called You'd Prefer an Astronaut. So when I first bought my first, like, 4-track studio, I wanted to try to emulate their sound. I laid it down, It didn't sound anything like that, but I came up with this sound, so to speak, and I've been working on it ever since. But that was like the first time that the Quality of Mercury came out, and I was thinking of different band names and whatnot. At that point in time, I was friends with a girl, and she had this list of different band names or project names at that time that she came up with for me, and one of them was the Quality. It was actually the Quality of Mercy, but I misread it, and I'm like, oh, the Quality of Mercury. That sounds kind of spacey and something I like to keep. So
one of those genius
that's
moments.
how that name stuck.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and it was interesting because when your album released, which was back in May, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I remember distinctly because not only were we on a show together, but at the same time, it was actually the mercurial transit across the sun as your album dropped. And it was interesting because your album dropped right up around your birthday and all that kind of stuff. But it was like, wow. I actually asked you, like, was this an intentional part of your album release? And it was just incredibly timed by the universe.
Maybe it was.
Good guy.
Well,
good
and it's interesting talking about some of the origins and the projects that you were listening to at the time because Nelson brought up something very interesting earlier. Like we do with all of our guest folks, we were of course talking off air and kind of getting ready for the show, and it was one of those like, okay, wait, save the gold for the show. Let's don't get into a bunch of crazy stuff. But Nelson had a concept as to who you may have been influenced by. Also, go ahead, Nelson.
Yeah, listening to this album for the first time about a week back, maybe 2 weeks. When I immediately heard it, I just thought Cynic, and I had a very heavy feel of Cynic without like they do a lot of melodic, heavy drops, and it's really spacey with that like high progression. Especially the vocals is really where I felt like Cynic was fitting into it. Are you familiar with them?
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with that band. Are they a prog band?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I should definitely check them out, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I personally heard a lot of Flaming Lips influence whenever I listened to it, especially in the vocal effects, stuff like that. Now, as we get into the first track on the album, which is actually Deep Space, tell us a little bit about the concept of the album, because I'm a big fan of concept albums, and they don't come out as often as they used to. There's kind of a resurgence.
I'm a big fan of them, too.
There's kind of a resurgence now with the independent artist and everything. Tell us about the concept of the album and what it's all about, Jer.
It's a love story, really. That's what it comes down to. But it's a love story in space, and it's about being alone and isolated in space. And, the overall theme of the story is a guy who was in love with a woman. Basically, he fucked it up. He left her or she left him, and now he is doing whatever he can to reconnect with his unrequited love. So he's like trying to track her down. At the same time, she's sending him signals, mixed signals, kind of just playing like a cat and mouse game, just because she can. She knows probably inevitably they will reconnect, but she has the upper hand, so she's kind of just toying with them. And that's kind of the overall concept of the album in an ungraceful manner of saying that,
It's beautiful. That's
right.
really awesome.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, let's go ahead and, Needles, if you can take it over for us, go ahead and drop things on track 1, which is Deep Space, a 5-minute, 36-second jaunt. We'll listen to a little bit of it and come in and talk about it. That is the intro track there, which is once again Deep Space. Tell us a little bit about that track, Jared, as we have it playing in the background.
Well, with this track, I knew I wanted this track to be the start of the album. And I wanted to kick it off in a way that it was grand and kind of epic. I don't know if I achieved that, but that was my vision for it.
Oh, absolutely.
I start the record with some interior like spaceship sound effects, and you'll hear that throughout the record between tracks as segues and whatnot. But what I envisioned was giving the listener an experience that it kind of takes them away and they can imagine themselves being on a spaceship and out in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That was like my intention for the song. I don't know if I accomplished that.
Well,
I don't know what the hell I accomplished.
It definitely has the takeoff aspect to it where it's,
I can definitely hear that in there.
Yeah,
yes.
where we're about to take off for a journey, y'all.
Right.
And it's buckle your seatbelts.
Right.
Is pretty much the message in that one. And I thoroughly love the track. It really introduces you, I think, or introduces the listener, rather, to your vocal styling, as well as a good intro to some of the sound production that occurs in the album. Because if you're listening to this on a stereo, folks, it's great, but really, really, really put some headphones on.
Yes.
This is headphone music. If you remember back in the day, like with Cure albums, it was actually written in the liner notes, like, put headphones on and turn this up. Because there are so many subtleties that happen in the production of this. Now, tell us a little bit about the process of your recording, Jer.
I want to say, first of all, thanks for acknowledging that. I really appreciate that you recognize that, because I didn't really tell you to do that. But
no,
it is a headphone album.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I try to make... When I write my songs, when I build my songs, it's all about building the sonic landscape first.
Exactly.
And, like, lyrics, I mean, I'll be honest with you, they're an afterthought. That's the last thing that I do.
Yes.
So I want to build a sonic landscape. I want to... Really, it's a landscape to me.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you recognize that the headphone experience is really where it's at for this record.
It's total ear candy, man. I was just saying earlier that with the headphones on, it's just ear candy. It's just the low ends. It's just mixed so well. It's great.
There's so many guitar tracks built into this thing that flow in and out throughout all the songs that, like, you literally can listen to it a bunch of times and hear something new. Every time.
Yeah, no, I've definitely, like I said, I got the pre-release. It had to have been in January or February whenever we met and started talking about it. And, you sent me some Dropbox files of it, and man, it blew me away. And it was one of those albums, like I said, that made my regular rotation. I used it as walk-in, walk-out music frequently, that kind of stuff. People really liked it, asked me who it was, and to me, it was one of those that it was something that every time I listened to it, I found something new. And I love people that take the time in their production to do that it's not just a straight track. How long have you been producing music, Jer?
Well, ever since I started recording, right? So I started out on a 4-track recorder back in 1997, and I've just been building my studio ever since. So,
and
I'll say that this is the best. This is the best production that I've put out so far.
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
Well, you
I think it fell short of my mark, though. Like it didn't.
Well, you
get where I wanted it to be, but I like it. I think it's pretty good.
I think you did an outstanding job.
Absolutely,
I think you did an outstanding job.
Yeah, the production is...
We are on FaceTime here, and you can see some great shots of Jared's studio in the background. Tell everybody what you're using on your vocal front end to achieve some of the sound that you're getting there, because your vocals are really smooth and warm. What exactly are you using in that process?
Hey, Chris.
Yo.
Are you able to turn the music down a little bit? I'm having a hard time hearing you guys.
Okay. There you go.
Thanks, pal.
No worries.
You got to repeat the question. I missed it.
Sorry about that. I was just wondering, what is it that you're using on the front end to actually get the vocal sound that you're getting? What are you using in the production studio?
Well, when you say front end, are you asking about the microphones and like the signal chain into the system,
the pre, stuff like that? Give people an idea of where you've come from, because I had the Tascam Mark II as well, the 424 Mark II. I loved that thing. It was my workhorse, still is. I use it to this day because it's one of the only ways you can get real tape manipulation. Stepping up from that, I've even, like I said, just sold backup gear recently because I no longer need it. And you tend to upgrade. What are you using now in the studio to achieve your vocals?
Well, now in the studio, I'm a Pro Tools guy, so I use Pro Tools. A few years back, I picked up an a.k.a. Symphony system for my head end.
Yep.
So those are my converters. I mix out of the box now. So I mix out of the a.k.a. into a dangerous 2-bus.
Nice.
But without getting real technical, this album, my equipment grew throughout the making of this record. And I'm embarrassed to say that it took me 7 years to make this record.
Sure. Don't be embarrassed with that. Because, truly, to me, at least a body of work like this that this album represents, it does show the growth of a musician. It does show somebody's thoughtfulness over time. And, you can't, at least to me, you can't judge art by how long it takes to make.
Yeah, as a single person doing this whole album like you did, I know there were some other people in certain aspects, but you did this. A 7-year span for how this sounds, the quality of it, your time and thought into it, the story behind it. It's fantastic, man, and I can see 7 years. This is a lot of work, and it's amazing. It's beautiful, and it shows it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, when I started this record, I had just gotten married. I just bought a house, I had kids, and all that crap. And so that took me away because I was really banging out a lot of music beforehand, a lot of recordings. But this all happened at once, and then my career took off also too. So
life happens.
The next record will be out a lot quicker, recorded and out a lot quicker. Let's put it that way.
Well, and on that note, let's go ahead and move on to the second track here. Which is actually Breathe in Stereo. It's a 6.5-minute long track. We'll listen to the first minute or so of it and come in and talk a little bit about it. So go ahead, Needles. Hit us with that.
I love it, Needles.
And that is the second track, which once again is Breathe in Stereo. And, we're going to be going through this whole album, everybody. We actually just had Chris Muma online asking some questions, and he was saying that his favorite track right now off the album is His Eyes Are the Sun. For you now, Jared, because I know myself as an artist, I have my favorite tracks. My favorite track is coming up here in a little while, and I'm not going to reveal it yet until it's time for it. But what's your favorite track off the album?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Chris Muma, and I want to tell you that the title of the song is Her Eyes Are the Stars, not His Eyes Are the Sun.
I'm sorry.
He drank too much.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
no, that was me.
Anyway.
That was me, actually. I read that wrong. Her Eyes Are the Stars is what Chris wrote. That's this Chris that jacked that one up, Bub.
All right. Since we're allowed to drink on this show, I'll let that pass.
That's right.
Here's some beer, baby.
Let it ride.
We saw the Suicide Group last week, so
Suicide Squad. See, we did it again.
So,
yeah.
But
what? Suicide Club. I heard that.
Yeah, Suicide Club. That's right.
Suicide
it's a great
Squad.
movie. But what is your favorite track off the album? Because it's hard as an artist to proud Papa, but
my favorite track is Her Eyes Are the Stars. It is.
Fantastic. Now, we'll be coming up to that track here in just a few. Now, about Breathe in Stereo, what was that track trying to represent in the scope of the story?
So, in the scope of the story, Breathe in Stereo is the guy is listening and always searching for this woman. And in this song, she's actually sending these messages, these mixed signals to him, and he's receiving them, but he can't really figure out what's going on and how to decipher these signals. And this, at this point, she's teasing him, really.
All right.
But at the same time, she knows eventually they'll reconnect, be together, and breathe in the stereo waves, if you will, as a real symbiotic relationship.
Oh, fantastic. And I love tracks that actually tell stories and mean something in the scope of stuff. Because, like I said, that to me is a lost art of storytelling in music. Now, Steve-O, you had a question a while ago.
Yeah, I was going to ask Jared that, what's your workflow process when it comes to your creativity and recording? Is there a certain way that you do every time when you go to record, or is it different every time?
It's been usually been the same. I'm a guitar player at heart, and a hack, if you will. But I'm a guitar player, and I start with writing rhythm guitar tracks. And I don't, usually it's just me fooling around and playing guitar, and I come up with something, and it's usually like a chorus part. I like hooks, and I'm a sucker for pop hooks. I am. So when I'm writing and just fooling around on guitar, I'll be strumming along and I'll come up with something that I like that. I'm going to use that as a part of a song, and then I kind of think of a vocal melody to it. And I usually have a good chorus section and a vocal hook for a chorus. Sure. And then I got to try to piece everything else around that. Right. And that's kind of how I work.
Nice.
I could totally relate to that. Yeah.
Sure.
Totally.
Well, and now, actually, Chris just rang in once again online and was asking about the mastering process, because that's something that not a lot of people realize, especially this being vinyl night here, that there is a totally different mastering process between going to digital and CD and going to even tape or to vinyl. Now, explain the learning curve that was there for you in that.
Well, yeah, this whole process has been a learning curve. But so basically, I mixed my tracks. I was ready for mastering, and I picked Alan Douches of West Side Music. Okay. He's done tons of records that I like. He does a lot of metal and hardcore stuff, and I wanted, not that I'm a metal or hardcore artist, but I wanted my record to sound heavy.
Yes.
And so I chose him. He's mastered so many records. I think I read that he was like number 2 for mastering the most records in the world, but I can't.
Wow.
Don't hold me to that.
Sure.
But he's mastered a lot of bands that I listen to, and I called him up, and he seemed really like a pleasure to work with. I took him up there. I took it up there. He mastered it. I think he did a great job. I had my record mastered for MP3s. I had it mastered for iTunes, and I had it mastered for vinyl.
So
and for CD. So basically, he gave me
did all three.
He gave me three or four different versions.
Great.
Yeah.
Wow. That's nice. Yeah, because
that's fantastic. Yeah, because not a lot of people realize the fact that you really do, specifically for iTunes playback and stuff like that, there is a compression ratio that happens, and if the proper mastering it in there, it'll just clip out and sound nasty as all get out.
Exactly.
Now, moving on, our next track is actually Deprivation Sickness, which is a favorite of Michael Feuerbach. Explain to us a little bit about this track before we get started.
This track was going to be an acoustic guitar and no vocals. It was just going to be a little segue. And I started writing and I started recording it. I recorded an acoustic guitar. And I'm like, this has got to be big. It's got to be big. It's got to be big. There's no way I can leave it like this. And I built it up. I'm like, I can't leave this just as acoustic guitar. So it turned into what it is. But basically, this song is about, you're stuck out in the middle of space. It is totally peaceful, serene, beautiful, but you're alone. And you're dying from the lack of contact, human contact, basically. I mean, that's kind of what that song's about.
And it's a real issue that astronauts deal with and stuff like that. Is the actual lack of human contact and everything else in prolonged space journey, and something that we've yet to. So it'll be interesting when it does get conquered. Let's see how you actually conquer this topic in track 3 of the album Transmission by the artist Quality of Mercury. Here we go with Deprivation Sickness. Bring it in, Needles. And there's that acoustic that you were talking about, Jared, that is just so absolutely haunting in this track. Keep that in there a little bit, Needles, because that is absolutely
doing
fantastic.
a great job, Needles.
Well, thank you.
Now, whenever you write, because I know I'm an acoustic person myself, and just here recently, I was talking to my wife, Amy, because we're working on a Dudes and Beer theme, and she was like, oh, just start writing lyrics. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't work that way for me. I've got to have the rhythm for the lyric to lock into. I can have an idea of what I want to write, but until I hear that rhythm in my head that clicks, it's not really going to happen. Now, you were saying your process is somewhat the same way. Do you work a lot on the acoustic, or do you do kind of a mix of acoustic and electric most of the time?
I go through phases. There's phases where I'm on acoustic all the time.
Yeah.
And then there's times I don't touch it at all.
Yep.
But I always always think where I can fit it into my music somewhere, because I like having acoustic tracks within the dense layers of distortion at some point.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it sounds beautiful mixed.
It seems like I write mostly now on the electric, just because my acoustic is kind of a pain in the ass to dig out.
Sure.
It's kind of buried. I keep it in the case. It's buried under a bunch of other guitars, and my electrics are hanging on the wall, so it's just easy to grab them right off the wall. You know?
It's a beautiful problem to have.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Third world problems.
Yeah, exactly. I've got to say, I've got the same issue, but I've recently taken to actually having the acoustic hanging in the living room, and especially now that for the first time in my life at the age of 40, I'm in a home, and I'm actually not sharing an adjacent wall, floor, or ceiling with a neighbor. I've lived in townhouses and apartments my whole life, so now I can actually pull out my guitar and just jam anytime I want, without worrying about waking up a neighbor up above me or below me or something like that. So I find I've actually started pulling that guitar out a whole lot more than what I used to. And
it's so important to have a space to be creative in. I mean,
yes,
when I was searching for a house, it's like that was a moral imperative. I'm not going to move into a house unless I have my own music room. And
yes.
My wife probably hates me for it because I have the best room in the house.
No.
It's my studio.
It was that way in our, because we were apartment dwellers until this place, and the second room of the apartment was my functional studio. And you know me, good. I modify guitar pedals, so there was a workbench on one side. I produce music and videos, so there's my big command center, like what you have behind you right now.
Right.
And then on the other side is my internet production station where I build websites. So it was the entire second room of our apartment. Oh yeah. And so it was one of those you gotta
have that sanctuary.
But it was funny because she started her podcast, and when we were looking at places, it was her that was really, really fighting to keep the studio space.
Nice.
She was like, no, we gotta have the space that's just for that creative thing, So even she has gotten to a point where she understands the importance of dedicating a space to that.
Right.
And it's great that you bring that up, because it's something that I tell so many musicians that are talking about, I want to start being more creative, I want to start writing more, what's the first step? And that's the first thing I ask them is, where is your creative space?
You got to have it. If you don't have it, you're not going to get anything done. And I know plenty of people that were creative, great musicians, and they just don't have the place to do it, and their wives are on their case all the time about it. You got to have a space that you can go, a cave or whatever, that you can go hide in and strum on a guitar without being distracted or interrupted or distracting. Or
can't be sitting on that couch in the living room.
And vice versa for women.
That's right.
They need their own place too, so y'all can both have
That's
your
it.
getaway, and then when y'all run the household together, y'all both are relaxed and y'all are responsive for each other.
Exactly.
Yep.
Sorry, I got a little
agree.
deep with that, but fuck it.
It's important because, and one of the things I tell people, even looking at your space back there, you're like me, and it's the fact of it's a battle for horizontal space.
Yes.
You can't have distractions in your way. You can't have a bunch of clutter on the table,
right?
Because that's going to distract your brain. It's got to be a clean workspace. It's got to be clear. It's got to be concise as to what that space is for. And I would say personally that Kenneth Dewar, who is actually tuned in right now to our show, who has built studios in the past, would probably agree with that assessment. Now,
would you, Kenneth?
I think we'll find out here in just a minute.
Yes.
Now, as we move on, the next track is the Orion Ascension, which is one of my favorite tracks on the album. Number one, just for the name. What was it that inspired the name for that track, Jer?
Well, so this track, for the longest time, even when I got it mastered, was called Down. And it was because I dropped this down a whole step to C. And it just, it didn't fit in the whole concept of the record, blah, blah, blah. But that was just a working title. The Orion Ascension. So if you listen to the song, it's about a guy taking off of a planet, let's say Earth, in a spaceship to go chase down his love, an angel, so to speak. And if you listen to some of the lyrics, it talks about going to the stars of Orion's belt and whatnot. So basically, that was just the Orion Ascension is literally taking off and flying up through the Orion constellation.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
Beautiful
Well,
song.
and let's go ahead and hit that drop real quick and bring that track in so our listeners can check it out. We've got a few minutes left in this part of the broadcast, and we will come back and talk about this track and more.
Yes, we will.
You know, I have to say, Jared, probably my favorite thing about this track is the delay that you use on the guitar track. The delay that you use on the guitar track in this is absolutely phenomenal, man. It has so much presence to it.
Are you talking about that ding?
Yeah.
Part,
The ping pong on the guitar is just, it's incredible in headphones.
That's interesting that you say that. That's cool because years ago when I started doing the Quality of Mercury bit, as you will, that was an effect that I kind of tweaked on an old Digitech delay multi-effects pedal type thing. And it was like this really chorusy delay, like watery to me, almost like drops of water.
Yeah, a real tremolo effect. Very vibrato.
A lot of my old recordings, I use that a lot, and I over the years I'm like, hey, that's kind of like been my trademark. So I try to fit that in quite a bit throughout most of my material.
Well, and that's what I love.
It's very present in that song. It is.
And I've got the same thing. I've got some signature delays that I've dialed in over the years. You've heard the music of Shakuhachi Jones, and we definitely use some signature delays on instruments in that. Now, one of the questions that came across here on Spreaker was actually from Kenneth Dewar, and he wanted to know what was one of the weirdest setups for a sound that you've ever done. We have about 3 minutes, really about 2.5. So we'll finish that question, and then we'll come back. We'll take a quick break, pause for the cause, use the restroom, come right back with the second part of the album and the rest of the interview. So your weirdest effect setup in 2 minutes. Go.
That's something I have to think about because I'm doing too out there.
Right.
I'll have to, let me make something up real quick, and when we come back from break, I'll let you know.
All right. I like that answer. So on that note, everybody, we're going to take a quick pause for the cause.
Don't go nowhere.
Don't go anywhere.
Do not leave.
We will be right back. Check us out, dudesandbeer.com/listen live now. So on that note, everybody, we will be right back right after this. And we are back. Welcome back to Dudes and Beer. I am Chris Jordan, your host. We're
What's
here
up,
with
people?
Whoa, what's up,
Stephen Bishop, Nelson Kugle, and with us on the phone once again is Jeremiah Rouse.
What up, Jeremiah?
Also known as the Quality of Mercury. We are actually listening to his pre-release vinyl of his album Transmission. And right now, we're actually on track 5, getting ready for the track Time. Now, before we went out to break, we actually had a question from Kenneth Dewar about the craziest effect chain that you ever had, the craziest effect rig that you ever did for a sound. And I'm going to go back because, like I said, I was somebody that used the old school 4-track as well. And I'd say that was probably some of my craziest effect chains because at that point I had no real patch bay or mixer, so it was like effect into effect into effect into the recorder. So what was some of the craziest patches that you ever did like that to try and make a sound happen on tape?
Well, I gotta say, by far the craziest thing that I ever did was that I took a Celestion speaker, like a 10-inch speaker from a cabinet.
Yeah.
Sounds juicy.
And I rigged it over the toilet in the bathroom with the cone facing down towards the water.
Sweet.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And I took it, I had this 2-channel Crown amp at the time. I forget how many watts it was, but I basically cranked the shit out of the audio that was going through that speaker. And then I set up a microphone that was pointing down at the water in the toilet.
Wow.
Okay.
Right? So the music that was, or the signal that was coming through that speaker was so loud that it like rippled the water.
Wow.
It like made it kind of splash and ripple. Like,
yep.
And then I added that effect of the water back in with the track of this like
Sweet.
Wow.
It was a weird sound. It was kind of like splashy.
Wow. That's so dope, dude.
Diarrhea sound. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's the dopest shit
That's
I've ever
pretty
heard.
sweet.
And if you
man.
believe that, you're really fucking gullible.
And see, I can say I did stuff like that. Like, I definitely used my 4-track and sped it up and, like, put a microphone onto, like, my creaking security gate, recorded it, and then played it back at normal speed so it sounded like whales. Stuff like that.
You know, I have done some weird stuff. I can't remember anything really offhand that I should tell you about. What I can say is I do a lot of post effects.
Mm-hmm.
So, after the tracks, I like to record as clean as possible. And then since I try to go for a lot of stereo effects,
Right.
it's best done in post for me rather than setting up multiple mics, multiple amps, and trying to do all that business.
Yeah.
But I will say this, when I go to record my new material, I am thinking about trying to get away from in-the-box effects and trying to do a lot more stuff, out of the box and with multiple amp setups.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Are you familiar with Dream Theater?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Jordan Rudis, he's got some pretty cool apps on the iTunes store, and one of them is called Sample Wiz. And that's one thing it's really fun to play around because you could just take a sample and then it's laid out on a key and you can take that and change it to any pitch you want,
That's really cool. Yeah.
I tell you what, I just got a new toy, which is the Eventide H9 Max pedal.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
An Eventide.
That thing, every sound effect in that thing is incredible.
Right.
And I look forward to actually setting up a couple amps to do a stereo out of it.
Yeah.
And start messing with that.
Is that your new favorite toy?
It blows me away.
Right.
Is that your favorite right now?
It is. I've only had it for like a week or two, and every time I plug into it, I'm like, holy crap, this sounds damn good. Yeah,
I've actually had a chance to interview their DSP engineer a couple times with Talking Sound at the Gear Festival with South by, and it amazes me every year the things that they come up with. Now, speaking of things that are come up with, we are getting ready to go into track 5, which is Time, a very short track, only about a minute and a half. So let's listen to a little bit of that and talk about its creation. And I have to say that little delay swell right there at the end is probably one of my favorite moments in the album. As you know, Jer, I'm a big fan of esoteric music. I do a lot of soundscaping and things like that. And to me, Time is one of the really poignant tracks on the album. It's really a turning point to me, and really a pivot point. Explain a little bit about the track and its place in the album.
Well, I mean, basically that track splits the album in two. And, you know, if you listen to the digital version of this, it's a seamless flow. There's no gaps between any audio. There's segues between everything.
Yep.
And that song Time, it tees up the next song so appropriately. It just works so well. But for me, Time was, I'll go back with this because
sure,
we haven't talked about it yet. But when I wrote this record, and as I was building it, I try to write it as if I were editing together a movie. So I have visuals in my head for everything.
Nice. Well, and that's important for people to understand, because you are actually a director of photography, and the whole way your brain works is in storyboard format. So it's interesting that you bring that up. Go ahead.
A pipe dream for me would be to make a short film to this album, and that's the way I wrote it. Like, I could visualize the whole story in my head, and I wrote the music that I saw or I heard in my head that would be appropriate to the visuals. So for this part, Time represents a person sitting in space where, seconds turn to minutes, minutes turn to hours, hours turn to days, and it's just a passing of time, this excruciating moments of just solitude, isolation, and what the fuck am I doing out here? And that's kind of what I tried to represent with that track.
Nice. I feel it.
Well, and I definitely feel it, especially in the loneliness, the space sound of it, the fact that there is a lull in action, but you're still moving somewhere. You're still going somewhere. Now that leads us into the what has been popularly a favorite track for people, Her Eyes Are the Stars. Now explain that track to us a little bit before we listen to it.
So this is definitely my favorite track on the record. This is the last song I wrote for the record.
Would you say that this would be the single for the record?
No, okay. This song's way too long to be a single. At about 9 minutes, but
which is why
song,
I like it.
I don't expect you to play the whole song, but this song goes through so many different changes, and it's almost like 3 songs in one. And the concept of this song is this guy's out, searching for his lost love. He's on a spaceship, and every night he basically lays down on his back, looks out the windows of his spacecraft, stares out into the sky, and has he reflects on this moment that he once had with this woman, right? And at the same time, he feels like this woman is looking back at him through the stars, basically. Like, he knows she's out there, and he feels her watching him. And that's kind of what the song's about.
Yeah, the same moon concept, that no matter where we are in the world, we're both looking at the same moon.
Yeah.
I get you.
Beautiful exactly. Concept. That's it.
Where do you feel like the song builds the best at?
It builds throughout the entirety of it. It really does. I will say this, though. My favorite 1 minute on the album is the last 1 minute of this song. For some reason, like the instrumentation, the way it flows, there's no lyrics there. It's just the end of the song. I love every single part of it, and my favorite part of this record. But the song in its entirety is my favorite. I mean, it's big, it's slow, then it comes into like some good chugging parts and some like melodic leads and some lead guitar parts. It's just for me, it has everything that I really desire.
Well, and that for me, it really describes it, because it is a song in movements. It is a song that moves in different parts, and really, like the track before it, kind of is the crux of the album itself, and really is the part that moves things along into the next part. So, with that in mind,
when you listen to Time,
go ahead.
When you listen to Time, and then Her Eyes Are the Stars kicks in after that long reverberated part at a time, it crushes you. It does. And if you listen to the instrumentation, to me it's my favorite. It just worked out really well.
Well, and on that note, we're actually going to try to bring it in as close as possible to the last minute, your favorite part of this track. And like I said, this has been a popular track off the album, one that many people that were responding were saying that it was a favorite of theirs. So let's go ahead and cue that up there, Needles.
Hit it, Needles. And that's how that track ends. That's what I love, is it literally drops you. And there are many moments in the album where, like you said, the album plays seamlessly, which is a very, very hard thing to accomplish as a writer. And I give you huge kudos on that, because I'm a big fan of that myself. I wrote an album not too long ago where the challenge for me was to make it not only where every song went seamlessly into one another, but where every song could be looped by itself and be seamless. And it was a chakra meditation album. It's pretty interesting, but to be able to do that, to be able to have that forethought of mind, what did it take you, writing wise and production wise, to actually make that happen, Jer?
What?
Writing and production wise, what
Nice.
did it take you to be able to actually make the tracks meld together the way that they do?
Well, that goes back to what I was saying before. It was all visual to me. So I was actually building a soundtrack to a movie in my head. That's really what it came down to.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
the flow was more important than the content of the lyrics. The sound was way more important than the content of the lyrics. And I just had in my head that I wanted this to be an experience more than songs thrown on a record.
Sure.
Yes.
So that's what I worked at. I worked at putting together an experience that you have to listen to
Right.
from start to finish.
Right.
I can't tell you any of these songs, stand great on their own. I don't know. I think you have to listen to this as a whole piece, and that's what I intended to do.
Right.
Is there any schooling in your background for production or guitar? Like, have you taken lessons? Have you gone to school, self-taught?
No. So, literally, I am the biggest hack that you'll probably ever talk to.
All right. That's a good thing
I
nowadays.
don't read and write music. I use a lot of production tools to fix stuff and make stuff better.
Understand.
Right.
That's what they're for.
As long as you understand how they work.
But I want to be... Well, I did write all the parts.
Yes.
I did play all the parts.
For sure. I understand that.
But you know, I use some tricks that help me along the way. As far as like audio recording, you know, I went to school for film production, and my senior film thesis, I ended up being the sound guy on that. So I did a bunch of field recordings. Cool. I learned early Pro Tools in college, and I learned some recording techniques in college, but not music production. I use, you know, Foley work and that kind, and like audio, dialogue recording. Sure. So when I picked up the guitar in college and started playing guitar in college, and then the year I graduated is when I picked up the 4-track recorder, and then I just read and just did it all on my own.
Nice.
So,
well, and see, as someone,
K-pop magazine has been a big influence and big education for me.
Yeah, and I mean, as someone who kind of had the reverse process, I started off as a musician, and that led me into video. To me, at least, understanding the nuances of audio for film, understanding the nuances of scoring under vocals, under Foley, and everything else. There are so many nuances to that the fact that you learned that before you learned rock and roll mixing, to me, explains a lot in your detail of sound. Truly, because Foley mixing is something that is an art in and of itself, and I've tried to explain to many people on the Talking Sound podcast that that whole concept of doing that kind of stuff really does take a totally different aspect of audio engineering and psychoacoustics, really, as to how you get drawn into a piece. So to actually know that you learned that before you learned audio recording for music makes a lot of sense to me.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I say that, but quite honestly, I didn't learn shit in college. I was too busy partying and kicking off in a particularly. But you know, I had a bit of a background, but I learned all this stuff on my own.
Right.
Yeah, and on that note, we have a couple tracks left. Moving on to the next one, the next track is Andromeda, which is the 7th track on the album. Give us a little bit of background about that before we go into it.
Yeah.
Well, the background of this, I mean, the idea of this song is it's about tolerating and becoming numb to the isolation. And, you know, with this song, I tried to be a bit more detailed with the lyrics and kind of more tangible, but really the song itself it's about isolation. I think that's it.
Well, and, you know, to me it's interesting because you actually make a lot of the tracks in this album about isolation, and it is a fact that when traveling interstellarly, you're going to have a lot of isolation. Even the movie Interstellar was very interesting to me, the way they shot it and the way that they incorporated that feeling in the music, in the soundtrack, and in the Foley work as well.
Yeah, it's about the isolation, and it's about becoming numb to the isolation, but at the same time, the main character, the guy who's in the spaceship, as he's out there, he actually longs for the woman more, right? So it's like the longer he's out there, the more he needs that human contact. Yeah. But at the same time, he's becoming numb to the fact that he's, you know, out there alone.
Which is also expressed because as the album goes on, he's getting further away from Earth, and that's absolutely expressed in the length of the tracks. Because as you flip over to side B of the vinyl, you really start getting into, as we saw, Her Eyes Are the Stars was almost 9 minutes. This track is close to 8, and the last track is right at 7. So it really is that concept of true reaching out there and trying to see the longevity of what's going on.
I think you nailed it, Chris. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, on that note, let's go ahead and cue up part of Andromeda off of Transmission by the Quality of Mercury. This is track 7. And that right there, like, is another great example of that vibrato delay that you're using. That's just such a signature sound in this album that literally throbs between the left and the right. I absolutely love that. What are you using to create that sound? Like, I know you said you dialed it in on a Digitech, but is that what you're still using to this day to create that sound?
No, yeah, I took a trip to India one time, and they were using these really weird instruments that made this really watery effect sound.
Yep.
And I can't remember for the life of me what the name of the instrument was. But when I came home, I'm like, well, I'm not getting a sound that I heard from these instruments.
Sure.
So I flew back to India to get one of these instruments.
You're a liar.
And
I just called out your horse shit. Seriously, though. No. I mean, you found this sound you were trying to replicate. Did you really fly back to India to get one of these instruments?
I've never been to India.
Okay, so
did you order it from India?
I love the sarcasm.
I love it.
Because I was halfway through. I was
in China. So I don't know what that means.
I was halfway through Googling Indian instrument with watery sound to see what you were talking about, and I was like, "Wait a minute, I know Jer way too well."
It's a water-filled oud.
But seriously, like, the effect that you're using there is absolutely amazing, and it's poignant and it's great. And I'd love to know what you're using to create that. I know, like you said, you use a lot of post effects. So, what were you using?
Yeah, so like I use a lot of in-the-box stuff. I am a big fan of Sound Toys plugins, and that probably was an Echo Boy, something that I did with Echo Boy.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, I add a lot of distortion to everything, and I make everything gritty. Yeah. And even when I have like distorted tracks, I'm like, I gotta dirty that up.
Well, it's interesting.
I don't know. Maybe I use too much distortion, but
I love the vibrato delay effect that you
Me
have
too,
going on
man. That
because
sounds so
it is absolutely spatial. It adds so much to what's going on to the rhythm track of the music.
Right.
And to actually hear somebody producing
Like
that
esoteric.
way, I'm a commit to the mix guy, and it drives a buddy of mine, Alan Cunningham, nuts. He's mixed my music for years and has recently kind of taken on the task again.
Right.
But it's one of those like, hey, I'm sorry, whenever I find the delay I want, that's the delay I want, and it's going to be on the raw track.
Right.
I still kind of do that. I don't go through and do, like in my rack, I got a lot of outboard effects. So to me, to do it in post is kind of funky. And now, go ahead with your process on that.
So my mindset with all this is like, well, I can find delays that I like through my amp, but that's still just a mono signal. I'm trying to create this huge stereo sonic landscape. I'm not going to be able to do that with one mic with a delay or a chorus effect through the amp. I gotta do that in post because I want that shit spread out wide, and I want to hear ping pong effects, and I want to hear a lot more depth to it. So that's the way I know how to work. I don't know how to work with doing it the other way yet. And like I said, when I go and move forward with the new recordings, I'm going to try to do a lot more stuff committed to tape and try to create the stereo effects using multiple amps and whatnot. But for this project, I decided to go in the box. And there's so many great tools out there that, you can achieve that stuff.
Yeah, you can, and it's amazing with plugins and stuff like that. Like I've got the full API bundle and Waves Diamond and stuff like that, and just to see what's available in that is absolutely phenomenal. And it really puts a lot of stuff right at your fingertips. Now, you've been using digital for a few years now. You actually still use hard gear before you go into digital, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah. I found it was best to invest in microphones and mic preamps.
Yeah.
That's first of all, it's where you get your sound. I mean, obviously your rig setup it has a lot to do with it.
Starts at the beginning.
The different flavors of mics and mic preamps add so much. I mean, it's tough for me to talk about this in a way that, because I really don't know what I'm talking about, but what I do know what I'm talking about is like nice. I don't hear the difference right away, but I hear the difference when I mix. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Because for the longest time, like I said, I used my Tascam Analog 4-track, and you get very used to that sound. But even still, the fact that I have the outboard gear, the fact that I have the tube preamps, the tube spatial expansion, the tube big bottom and everything else makes a huge difference on every track that I put into digital because it's warming it up. It's giving harmonics that would not be there through the straight PreSonus input that I'm using on my record rig.
Every microphone, every mic preamp,
it all
colors
sound
the sound in a different way.
Absolutely.
So if you're going to use the same mic and the same mic preamp for everything, basically all your sounds are going to have that EQ bump in one area, EQ cut in another area.
Yeah.
So, the more you can spread that out with different gear, the more tonal palette you have, and the way it's a bit easier to mix. And you're not going to build up like any kind of huge frequency bumps from that one setup throughout your mix, I guess.
And that's a huge thing to keep in mind because you're a musician like myself. You mix most of your own music. And I've recently gotten to the point where I've decided that for mastering and everything else, and especially for multi-track mixing, I really need to start sending my stuff out to somebody because I need an independent ear on it. I know what I want the piece to be, but at the same time, somebody else with a more trained ear would probably be like, you know what? We could probably use about a minute less guitar in this. Whereas I would use the entire guitar track and just master it out.
Right.
And to me, getting to the point where you do find, like you found somebody that you trust now with the mastering of your material, what was that learning hurdle for you? What was that barrier of trust that finally came with letting somebody else master your stuff?
it's funny because I went into the mastering. I wanted to sit in on the mastering session, and that was a big deal to me because I haven't been to a professional mastering session before.
Right.
And I'm like, this is going to be a great learning experience for me. I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to learn some stuff. And I'm like, it's like Kung Fu Panda. There is no secret recipe.
That's right.
There's no, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
The guy just sat there and he tweaked some stuff. I'm like, what are you doing here? What's your formula? He's like, I don't know. I'm just going to turn this knob.
It turned
it
until
was
it
a lot more
sounds
than
right.
that. But yeah, I mean, there is no secret recipe. So, that's something I've learned the entire, along the way during my entire process of making music. I keep thinking there's a formula, there's some kind of secret. And what am I doing that there's not? There is no
the secret is there is no secret.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the mastering process, which, by the way, the sound that he came up with in the mastering, I mean, it wasn't a lot different than what the mixes I gave him, but everything came out a lot clearer, a lot more grounded in the bass frequencies. He just did a great job.
He did. He sure did.
I had to listen to it for a long time because I thought it was a little bit too trebly, too much high end, but that's the way I mixed it,
Sure.
Yeah.
But after listening to it so many times, I'm like, man, this guy really did a great job on it. He did. I can't give him enough credit.
Did you get to see the process of the record being cut?
No, I did not.
No. Okay.
No.
Well, and that's understandable because and that's understandable because there are very few houses that actually do runs and stuff like that. So being able to be on site whenever your acetate is actually pressed and cut
Let me tell you
is pretty rare.
The process of having a record done is so, first of all, expensive, and second of all, complicated.
Yeah.
It is mind-boggling.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And right now, since vinyl is such a huge resurgence of vinyl, I mean, it's like it's taken forever. Like, as soon as I wanted to inquire about records, they're like, 20 weeks minimum.
Yeah.
20 weeks minimum to turn around a record.
Yes.
Holy crap.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's a long time.
But my mastering engineer from Alan Douches from West Side, he's like, you have to have this record cut by a really good lacquer cutter. And he recommended a guy, Kevin Gray. He's out in California, Coherent Audio, and he's done some top-notch stuff. And I think he did a really great job cutting a record. I'm waiting to hear the final product. Where it's like what you guys listen to is a test pressing. It's
an amazing sounding test pressing.
Yeah, it sounds good. I can't wait to hear
Sounds
the
amazing.
final product. Well, can't wait to own the final product.
Well, and on that...
And by the way, can I just give out I don't know if Casey Donahue is listening, but he just bought a record.
Nice.
So if he bought a record because he's listening to the show, thank you, Casey. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And on that note, let's go into Terminal Velocity. We got about 8 minutes left in the show. We're going to go into the last track. And if you're okay, we're going to play the last bit of the album until it actually goes out, just to give people an idea of what it ends on.
Sure, it's great.
All right, fantastic. Well, Needles, this is your last chance this evening. Go for it, bub. And I actually love the way that album is.
What an ending, man.
Dude, that's
it's
insane.
Oh, yeah. It's
So
absolutely phenomenal and friggin' epic.
That is an epic.
The ending of that is so
Thanks a lot,
fantastic.
guys.
That was the end of the album, Transmission. The last track is Terminal Velocity. It's about 7 minutes long. That was the last minute and a half of it. And that's by the Quality of Mercury. Now, tell everybody where they can find the music, where they can go to pre-order their vinyl badass blue copy of this record.
Chris, I don't know if you can hear me, but I lost all audio. Did you unplug something? It sounded like something popped out.
Oh, no. Yeah, are we there?
Whatever you're wiggling is doing it.
There we go. Yeah, we lost power on your mixer. How about that, buddy?
Nope.
No?
Again, something's
Still
loose here.
nothing?
When you were moving it, we had source, but no source after that.
Yeah, there we go, buddy.
I got you back.
Hot dog. How about that? So let everybody who's listening know where they can find the Quality of Mercury and where they can pre-order their badass blue vinyl copy of this on huge grammage of vinyl.
Yeah, huge grammage.
You can find all of my info at www.thequalityofmercury.com. That's my website. That will give you links to my Bandcamp page for digital downloads. That will give you a link to my limited run page where you can buy the vinyl, and Facebook and YouTube, blah, 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 Instagram. So that's www.thequalityofmercury.com.
And just so you folks know, the vinyl is like amazingly priced. What is the vinyl going for right now?
The vinyl's $25.
Wow.
Like you really
$25,
can't.
but you gotta pay.
That's
you
good.
gotta pay shipping. But
Yeah.
just the vinyl itself, it's a gatefold jacket.
Nice.
Right.
Nice.
It's
Love gatefolds.
translucent blue with black marbling, 180 gram.
Nice.
Yeah.
It
You really
the
went all
artwork
out.
inside and out. Yeah, the artwork was done by David A. Hardy, the oldest living sci-fi artist.
Yep.
Wow.
World-renowned sci-fi artist.
Yeah.
He did the inside and outside covers. There's a full-color insert, and they're all hand-numbered, limited edition, 300.
Beautiful,
Nice.
beautiful, and I love that. I'm all about the fact that you have made something a collectible commodity, made something that is so artistically moving, a rare commodity,
Get
because
one,
it's
get
so
limited edition.
it's so frequent to be able to get runs of 1,000 and stuff like that. To actually put it out in a limited press run is amazing and brilliant on your side. So
Can I ask you
kudos to you.
one
Go
quick
ahead,
question?
Nelson.
I know we're about to end here soon. Are you familiar with a band called Mew from Copenhagen?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, big fan.
Yeah, they're amazing. I feel a little influence from the Glass-Handed Kite in this album.
Yeah, some of the vocals, you could definitely say that.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, they've been an influence over the time.
Awesome,
Yeah,
that's so
absolutely.
cool.
In the past 10 years, Mew, I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of Mew.
Yeah, they're incredible. Incredible.
Well, and as we close up, we want to thank everybody so much for tuning in. Keep on tuning in. Dudesandbeer.com /listen live now is the best way to check it out every week. Jer, one last time, let everybody know where they can go to check out the Quality of Mercury and your music.
I would say just go to my website, www.thequalityofmercury.com. You can find all the links to whatever you want to get from me there. Chris, I just want to say thank you very much for having me on the show. Thank you
Absolutely.
for support. It's people like you
Yes.
and people like Chris Mumoff, Kenneth Dewar,
Yeah, that's right.
everybody who's listening right
Even
now.
Doug
Yes.
Wiggins, who just chimed in. You know,
Nice.
How you doing, Doug? Thanks for listening.
No, really.
Yeah, it's those people that make the show, and it's the people who tune in that make it, and it's artists like you coming on the show, actually, that make the show and make great content for us. Because we love premiering new music. We love being able to bring people...
Anybody who gets this record,
the latest stuff that's out there, whether it's news, what have you, that's what Dudes and Beer is all about. So for you to actually come on the show and share this for the first time publicly is huge for us, Jer. It's fantastic. And we thank Thank you
Well,
so
I'm
much.
very grateful for you guys and for the
grateful
people
for
who
you.
are tuning in.
Very thankful.
Thank you so much.
Hey, absolutely. And on that note, everybody, please make sure to go to thequalityofmercury.com. Check out the music of The Quality of Mercury. The album Transmission is absolutely amazing. On that note, Jeremiah Rouse, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks,
And,
Jer. We appreciate
thanks,
you, bud.
Jer. That's it for this edition.
Thanks, guys. You rock. You totally
Hey,
rock.
We love the hell
brother.
out of you, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. Stay close. And on that note, everybody, if you can't be good,
Be good at it.
We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Dudes and Beer Podcast. Visit us online at www.dudesandbeer.com. Find our audio streams on soundcloud.com and spreaker.com/Dudes and Beer. Follow us on Facebook /Dudes and Beer. Thanks for listening, everybody. And until next time, drink responsibly.